From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
The old show wagon that the city used to put on for 50 years, when they quit doing that a few years ago, it kind of left a void. So the Omaha Mobile Stage seemed like a real good venue to bring that back.
It's important to have places where the community can come together and event spaces, and music's a big thing in Omaha, so be able to support lots of local artists and musicians as well.
The idea of being able to bring the arts into communities that are typically underserved, whether it's through financial means or proximity, is really important to me.
Share talents, share spirit.
Good times and laughter.
Yes, thank you. Yes, good times and laughter.
Good times and laughter. That's what it's going to bring.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 25th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the Omaha Mobile Stage. We have two guests joining us today. Jessica Sherman, founder and executive director for Partners for Livable Omaha, and Jeffrey Day. Jeffrey is a professor of architecture at UNL. He joins us via Zoom. Thank you both and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Jessica, I want to start with you and asking you to paint a picture of the arts in Nebraska.
Sure. The arts in Nebraska are in recovery right now. So the pandemic took a major toll on the sector in general. Nebraska has over 600 performing arts businesses, and half of those are in the music industry. So if you can imagine what it would have been like in March 2020, it would have been underemployment, unemployment, closures, and we really saw the industry move toward a virtual format, which created new challenges for these businesses, for their employees, and for audiences. So now that we're moving toward a post-pandemic time period, we still have most of performing arts institutions producing virtual content. Less than half of art attendees are attending events in person. So it's really a transitional time for the industry.
Okay, this might be a good time to ask you to tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. My background is in community organizing. I 15 years ago began my career providing technical assistance to communities who were seeking to use arts and culture as a tool for economic and community development.
Okay, so you're watching all of this shake out. What's going through your mind as you're witnessing this happening to the arts during the pandemic?
Sure. I see the people. I married a musician. I have worked in the arts sector. I've worked as a consultant with foundations and governments looking to use arts as a tool for community building. And it really comes down to individuals. So when you see a venue close, I see the individuals who worked there being unemployed. I think about their families. I think about their livelihood. And I recognize their value in sort of a broader contribution to society.
Okay, so that personal and professional background prompted you to start a nonprofit. Tell us about Partners for Livable Omaha.
Partners for Livable Omaha really began at the beginning of the pandemic, and Omaha Mobile Stage grew out of that. So I took everything I had learned over the prior 15 years and really thought, how can I apply these lessons to a project in Omaha that responds not only to the Omaha community, but incorporates all of these different aspects of creative placemaking. How do we take this time as an opportunity to address some of the public health crisis, particularly issues related to social isolation, anxiety, depression, all of these things that are sort of keeping community apart is there an arts-based solution to that? How do we address things like unemployment or underemployment? How do we build intergenerational audiences, and how do we do it at a neighborhood scale? That's really that's my preferred scale to work in. Some people like to work regionally, some people think statewide. I really think neighborhood.
Okay. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to, I want to put a photo up for our viewers, because hearing you talk, it all boils down to, Jessica, this truck, right? So tell us, first of all, about this truck.
Sure. In the context of creative placemaking, you're often taking something old and repurposing it. So you're looking at underutilized spaces, whether it's a commercial district or a building on a commercial district, or a park that hasn't been programmed. It's something physically rooted in place. I knew going into this organization that I didn't want to work on somebody else's building. I really wanted to be in public space, and I knew we had amazing resources in our schools and our parks and our gardens in this community. Those are rooted in physical space, and they overcome some of those COVID-related challenges to producing work, which is a building, shared air. We wanted to be outdoors. And so the simplest solution to that was a truck or a trailer that we could build a state-of-the-art stage on or within and bring that into public space. This truck was the only truck available, to be perfectly honest. So the supply chain issues that everyone experienced with COVID extended into the auto industry, and purchasing a truck in the middle of this year on a limited budget as a startup entity that actually ran and started led us to this truck. So we were searching within 400 miles of Omaha, and this is a 2004 GMC box truck. Its prior owner used it as a knife sharpening business, and he unfortunately passed away 3 years ago. This truck has been sitting and waiting. And his estate sold it at the exact same time we were looking for a truck. And it turns out to have unique features that wouldn't have been available had we purchased a repurposed moving truck or some other type of vehicle. So we have a side door and we have a back door. We have a generator. We have 18 feet of box space to work with. So these things that are unusual about the truck actually lend itself to, I think, a more interesting stage.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, this art venue on wheels, not necessarily new. We're going to put up a couple more photographs, and I want you to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Sure. In 1952, the Omaha World Herald purchased this show wagon for the Parks Department. And this operated as a youth talent show. This program ran for 59 years. A couple different stages took over, but this is the original stage. And in 1966, Lincoln received a stage purchased by its newspaper. So both towns were operating youth talent shows in parks and schools as a feature of neighborhood life. So it's a similar scale. And it's a similar intergenerational audience. It's a similar reliance on schools and parks as anchor institutions to bring people together. And in the 1970s, the show wagon was really in its heyday. There were hundreds of contestants, thousands of people were coming, and it was really a feature of neighborhood life in Omaha and in Lincoln, and really something that's remembered fondly.
Wow. Okay, so this truck, the white truck that we saw earlier. So you have this great idea, you have this vehicle. Now it comes down to, with whom do you partner to bring your dream and that of those with whom you work to reality, right? Turn that into reality. And you picked UNL. Why UNL?
I picked Jeffrey Day. and UNL is part of that. So Jeff runs a studio called FACT, Fabrication and Construction Team, which is a semester-long course within the College of Architecture at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And they take on nonprofit clients and do amazing pro bono work to really assist them in working in the cultural landscape. And I had met Jeff about 8 years ago on a similar project, a similar design build project that his studio was running. And I just remembered how wonderful it was to work in that collaborative process, not just with him, but with the process he uses with the students. And in December of 2020, right after we established the nonprofit, I connected with Jeff and simply asked if it was possible. We also connected with Brendan Greenwalsh, who's the technical director, and Brendan, Jeff, and I worked all summer before the semester started to really lay the groundwork for how are we going to do this.
Jeffrey Day, quite an introduction to you, I would say, that Jessica has made. We'll bring you in to the discussion now. I have to ask, even though she said she knew of you prior to all of this, when you get a call like that, right? What goes through your mind knowing how busy you probably already are and how much work there is for the students to do? Tell me kind of what was going through your head.
Yeah, it's, you know, when we take on new projects, we're always really interested in the ones that have the most unique, you know, possibilities, and in some cases the ones that sound the closest to impossible and the most challenging. So we're really kind of excited about a project like Omaha Mobile Stage, where, I mean, at that point, we didn't know that this was going to be a repurposed truck. It was just an abstract idea of a mobile stage. And there's just so many opportunities in that concept that was really intriguing to me. And I thought that it would allow architecture and interior design students to explore a different way of thinking about the built environment, to think about it as a mobile enterprise as opposed to something fixed in place as we're generally trained to consider what architecture is.
Okay, so how did you explain that? And we're going to look at photos in a minute, but how did you introduce this whole idea to the students?
Well, so the students didn't really know what they were about to be charged with until the semester began. Right at the beginning of the semester, I present the project to students, and they're enrolling in the various studio opportunities. And this was a chance for them to work on a real project, which is not something they typically do in design school, where they're generally working on more hypothetical enterprises. One of the challenges that I present to students is the idea that we are designing in a live environment. We're considering budgets, we're considering changing priorities that come up as we work. And just the contingencies of how things get put together and made, and the collaborations that happen between not only the design team, but also fabricators, and other partners that we work with. And we've assembled a fairly broad team of advisors to advise us on all aspects of this. So the students, you know, the students selected this studio with the idea that they're sort of jumping into the unknown a little bit, but with a very intensive expectation that they're going to be completing this project at the end of the semester.
Wow. That is awesome. We have a photo of this student team. We're going to put that up. Talk to us about these particular students, Jeff, and the work that they have done so far on this project.
Yeah, so this is a studio of 16 architecture and interior design students. It's part of a program in the College of Architecture we call the Collaborate Studio, which occurs in the fall semester of the 4th year of the professional programs. And this is where we bring students from the different disciplines. So that in our college, that would be architecture, interior design, and landscape architecture. Sometimes planning, that's a graduate degree. We would bring those students together to work on projects I guess I would say that projects that fall outside of the domain of an individual discipline. So this isn't exactly an architecture project. It's not exactly an interior design project, but students from those disciplines can get together and collaborate to come up with the ideal solution to the challenge that Jessica's proposed. So we work collaboratively throughout the entire semester. As you can see in this image, we start by, in this case, a lot of times repurposing projects involves demolition at some phase. So taking the truck apart sort of back to its bones, starting to understand how it's actually made, and then starting to design with the very particular materials that we're working with in mind. And, it can be a messy process, but in the end, I think the students really enjoy the idea that they're working on physical things while they're also conceiving of innovative design solutions for the mobile stage.
And there were 4 designs, is that correct, in terms of what, now, and they're probably all different, but Jeff, talk to us about the common threads with those 4 designs. What did those students really need to be thinking about in order to bring this to light in a way that, that Jessica and you had hoped?
Yeah. Well, so you're correct. We started with 4 teams of students. So out of 16, we had 4 teams of 4. And each was charged to come up with concepts for the project that met a series of criteria. The truck had to, as a stage, it had to support a wide variety of performing arts. So we're talking about theater, live, amplified music, acoustic music, dance, a whole range of things, including spoken word, where there might just be one performer on the stage, to a large choir from a school group that could be 30 to 50 students performing. So that's in and of itself a substantial challenge for any theater project, let alone a mobile theater. So they had to accommodate those needs. We also had a very particular challenge that the project, or the truck, had to be able to be sort of moved to a site for a performance and set up and installed and ready for performance within half an hour, needing no more than 2 people to do that work. So this is sort of an operational goal that we had in order to make this project really feasible for the kind of events that Jessica and Livable Omaha had imagined. So the students had to conceive of all of that, work through different ideas of how to approach that with the specifics of this truck in mind. And so we ended up with 4 concepts that approached it in different ways. And that was sort of the end of the very first 2-week phase of this project.
And then on October 22nd, you announced you had kind of a reveal, right? That kind of drilled down, taking all those things you talked about into one scheme. So what was the process involved there? How were you able to just pick one or bring it all together?
Yeah, so, and the students, of course, knew that this process was unfolding, and I think one of the things that's important about my studio FACT projects in general, and the Collaborate studio in particular, is that the students know that nothing that is completed is going to be done individually. It's all collaborative. So there may be bits and pieces of ideas from individual students, but the entirety of the project is really the collective work of everybody involved. So we had, at the end of this first design phase, we had a presentation, a more private presentation with a series of invited guests who commented on the work. Each team presented their project. At the end of that, the core team, Jessica and Brendan and I, sort of caucused on this and decided which are the ideas that were the most viable and the strongest and the most exciting, and started to think about how we could merge ideas from different teams together. And then we brought those suggestions to the students and sort of came up with a final design that is really an amalgam of the best ideas from the entire project.
Okay, let's take just a couple of minutes and walk our viewers through some visuals here in terms of what folks can expect to see and experience from this truck.
Well, as you can see here, the truck is still an operable box truck. It has to, meet the rules of the road and can be taken from site to site around Omaha and other locations. Striking visuals is a really important part of that. When the truck arrives at a site, it would park in a particular location as determined by our operations procedures, and open up Essentially, we've decided that the truck will have two very large doors that essentially open up one entire side. And when those doors open, they start to obscure the vehicular nature of this. So the cab will be hidden. It'll expand that to be a fairly wide stage. We have a stage that unfolds from the inside of the truck to become a fairly large surface for performance. And then there's a backdrop that matches the doors so that you end up with a consistent appearance. And even a sunshade that would cantilever off of the truck and expand to shade the performers. And so this is really the view from the audience perspective at a particular event. And as you can see in the foreground, there's a lighting truss. We'll have sound equipment for amplified music. It'll be a fully lit stage so that events could occur at night or dusk or any other time of day. And we'll allow performers of different types to customize the stage. They can hang banners on this, they can create backdrops, and really sort of make this work with their particular event.
Wow. What is the status of the actual construction or of the project, Jeff?
We are in the thick of it right now. We are working with some custom fabricators who are going to build components that the students aren't able to do or our equipment doesn't allow us to achieve. Meeting with those fabricators and talking through small details. We're also working on mock-ups of full-scale components that we're going to be building, and some of those pieces will be built by students for the final product. We are ordering materials. Everything is kind of happening all at once. Each student is working in another sort of set of teams focused on particular areas, and those include everything from the doors that you just saw in the image to stage furniture for performers.
All right, I'd ask you, I mean, to be smiling and know that you're in the thick of it, that's pretty impressive, Jeff. But you're so many things to these students right now. I'm thinking primarily just about the whole management of all of this, right? You're their teacher, you're their mentor, you're a lot of things, but you're a manager too in terms of, keeping all of this together.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and of course, I assume at the beginning that these students are coming here without experience fabricating large-scale, steel and aluminum components. So we start from a point of view that everyone is learning while we're doing this, and coming up with the best way to solve the problem. I really act as a coach, I think, more than anything else in this process, but also maybe a co-creator with the students. But most of my role really is kind of managing the process and making sure that the right people are in the room at the right time to deal with the situations that we have at hand. And of course, Jessica and Brendan are involved on a regular basis. We have a whole communications process set up so that questions can get answered very quickly and keep us on pace.
Jessica, once the truck is done, then how's it going to be used?
Sure. The truck has a few priority uses. As I mentioned before, our goal is really to create intergenerational gatherings in public space. So just as Jeff joined the project at the very beginning, we have a number of organizations that are either rooted in the education space or in public space management, arts nonprofit organizations. They're all able to contribute to this project in real time too. So at the end of the construction phase, we will essentially embark on a tour of public space in Omaha. A lot of those sites are rooted in spaces that are already experiencing some type of revitalization, whether it's a major revitalization like the riverfront, the new Jean Leahy Mall space, or it's a neighborhood that's simply using arts and culture to bring community together, like Culture House on North 24th or the Gifford Park neighborhood. We've asked them to partner with us to co-produce work, or asked them, how can this stage be useful to you? And then we reached out to a number of arts nonprofit organizations to produce work. So our role is really as a facilitator, a fundraiser, and project manager. We're here to elevate the work that's already happening in Omaha by its creative community. And then the tour right now has 6 locations that we'll be going to in the spring and summer. And we're spending a lot of time in Omaha Public Schools. So this project has a wonderful fiscal agent, the Omaha Public Schools Foundation, and they're one of our supporters, and they're also co-producing community partnerships with us. So we're building relationships with schools and essentially asking how can we be helpful to either supporting Omaha Public Schools student performances by hosting those on school grounds. COVID forced a lot of instructors to move programming outdoors, particularly in that time period where you either cancel it or you do it outside. You're sort of left with those two choices. So that fell onto teachers to move risers and equipment outdoors to host performances. Wow. And that's where one of the innovations came from, is hearing that story and realizing, we need to be prepared for show choir.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of building it in partnership with all of these different voices.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll be in schools, we'll be in parks, we'll be in public space.
Gosh, we wish you the best. Talking to Jessica Sherman and Jeff Day about this mobile stage. So exciting. Best wishes to you guys. We'll have to check back in with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. As we close, a look at Memorial Park in Omaha as seen through the lens of Cody Harms, a senior at UNO. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
It is the longest-running Omaha-based statewide television program on the air today. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt, producer and host of Consider This. Now in our 25th season, we wish to acknowledge those who have made this educational journey possible. Our guests, underwriters, student crews, the Knowledge Network, the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and of course, viewers just like you. Thank you for watching.